someone told me that I was going to get deported. BLK Black Americans cope harder than anybody. The comment that I would get is like, well, why are you dredging this up? A lot of people like to bring up a Morgan Freeman quote, which is basically like, stop talking about it and it will go away. To me as a historian, I find that extremely ignorant. Like, don't study World War I. Don't study World War II. That was ancient history. Why are you studying that stuff? It doesn't matter. You appear to have done well in the genetic lottery, Danielle. You could claim either white privilege or victim status. Are you ever concerned that you're going down a rabbit hole on race? All European immigrants had the same experience coming to America, and that's just not true. I'm a student of history, and I really resent these broad looks at American history. Like, America hasn't been around long enough to paint with such a broad brushstroke. Hi, I'm Danielle Romero. Thank you so much for being with me here on my channel where we talk about American identity and family stories. And first of all, I just want to say thank you so much. I woke up this morning and I was 5 subs away from 100,000. And so I got to watch it turn to 100,000. And I didn't think I would feel anything about that, but 100,000 is a lot of people. But to me, what that number means is that there are 100,000 people who care about having conversations about our family stories, our history, our shared history. And that fills me with a lot of hope, especially because some of these comments I'm about to read you. And so the comment that I would get is like, well, why are you dredging this up? A lot of people like to bring up a Morgan Freeman quote, which is basically like, stop talking about it and it will go away. To me as a historian, I find that extremely ignorant. No shade to Morgan Freeman here, but I just disagree 100%. Again, I don't care about flexing my academic muscles. I think college is mostly a scam, but what I'm trying to say is I'm 38 now. I have been studying history like intensely since a child. Like, I love history. And so it's surprising to me when people are frustrated that I'm looking back 40 years in history, 50 years in history. Austrian Painter 14, you already know you're in for it. The username sometimes I'm like, oh boy, buckle up. This is embarrassing. All 4 of Ruth's great-grandparents were German. His first language is German. This fake rumor is just proof that BLK Black Americans cope harder than anybody. Germans can also be swarthy. Ben Franklin famously joked about it. I want to read a couple more about the video before I react to that. This person has been on the channel for a little while, said, I thought your channel was above baseless rumors. It's also unfortunate to see you presenting surface level phenotypic stereotypes from photos. You should know that the eye of the beholder is subjective and often wrong with respect to ancestry and DNA. I would have preferred to see you cover the rumors of his day in light of the prejudices that they described, which I'm pretty sure I did, and jump down. Think of it this way. What if tomorrow DNA evidence proving that Babe Ruth was 100% European is discovered? Doesn't that make those who are today speculating with comments based on his nose and lip shape just as prejudiced and stereotyping as the people that hurled insults and rumors at him in his day? I find it all very distasteful. So I responded and I just said, great question. If his DNA was proved to be 100% European, my video is still relevant because the fact that there were rumors based on his race looking at phenotype, that's the witch hunt of Jim Crow. Now listen, I'm not saying he's black in this video. I have no idea. And people who are saying he is black, like, we don't know. We don't know what was happening. Okay. But the point is that the witch hunt of Jim Crow was not only one drop of black blood, but also the side eye of like, your hair is a little curly. Like, are you black too? Your nose isn't as pointy as I think a white person should be. You're black. And it was kind of extrapolating out from this thought of, well, there were all these rumors that Babe Ruth was called N-word lips growing up. That was a thing he dealt with. He was called other things, right? Someone also brought to my attention that he did barnstorming with the Negro Leagues, which I had to have my husband explain it to me a little bit. But basically, he would be meeting up with players in the Negro Leagues and kind of doing their own games, and he got in trouble for doing that. So you have a man whose phenotype doesn't fit with what people think a white person looks like, and then he's chilling with people that he's supposed to be segregated from. So I'm going to jump down to another person said, even if he was mixed, who cares? For black people, just trying to own anything you can, huh? We wouldn't care. And I'm explaining that if he was mixed race, he couldn't have played for the Yankees. I don't know what he was. There were rumors circulating around about him. I don't know. If somebody pushed a little harder and he somehow wasn't allowed to play for the Yankees, that would be insane. That's the entire point. Exploring how insane these racial codes were at the time. And this wasn't that long ago. And so this person said, well, you still want to live there, clearly, which I think I don't like live in Jim Crow. Like, no, I said, I'm a historian by trade and a history teacher. It's always very strange to me that's okay to teach about history from 200 years ago, 300 years ago, but not 75 to 100 years ago. Obviously, this is so frustrating to me. Like, I am pretty thick-skinned at this point. I get a lot of racial slurs commented at me, a lot of just like trashy guys saying dumb stuff, people who are typing in all caps and stuff. That's fine. That doesn't bother me. What bothers me are people who cannot understand that we need to have a conversation because of the way that you're reacting to this video. So that's surprising. Another one where I went to look for one of the plantations where some of my family were enslaved in Louisiana. And I didn't end up getting to walk the plantation. It's a privately held property now. And I was just kind of talking about that experience, and it's called Finding Your Roots, what I found at the plantation. So this person, said, I guess this is a first world thing. When you have the privilege to care about things like that affect you because you decided so, while there's people actually in pain out there. And my response was, I never understand comments like this. Do you watch TV? Do you scroll on your phone? Do you order food? Why are you doing that when there are people suffering in the world? Is it a first world problem to want to know your ancestry? So I've taken some philosophy classes. I've taken classes like that like a million years ago because like I said, I'm 38. I don't know all the names for all the arguments and the fallacies and stuff like that. But you know it when you see it. And this is ridiculous. When people point at looking at history, talking about history, and I always do it in a non-divisive way. I always do it in a way where I reject pitting people against each other. I'm not on a witch hunt after white people. I'm not on a witch hunt after black people. I don't care if you're a Democrat, a Libertarian, a Republican. You're welcome at my table to have a conversation with me. I don't know this person's story or anything, but I mean, we could say that about anything. You know, why are you buying a new shirt at Target? Don't you know people are suffering in the world? Why are you buying a coffee? People are hungry. Like, that's not an argument. I'm sorry, it's just not. And I'm going to keep talking about history. And I think the more we discuss the history, I think it helps us to make more informed decisions in the future. So let me know your thoughts on that. This person said, Mr. Booyah, said a channel all about whiteness. And they said it's about American identity and family stories. They said it's clearly reveling in victimhood and all about deconstructing whiteness, that we don't defend ourselves or our identity. Amazing how insecure some people are. If you're with me last summer, oh boy, I'm learning in public. I'm learning so much. Last summer, I went through some Supreme Court cases and some lower court cases too, about immigrants who needed to prove that they were white so they could have U.S. citizenship. How can you prove you were white? White's not a country. It's not an ethnicity. It's not a nationality. It's not a language. What is white? Well, the Supreme Court had various ideas on what white was, and often contradictory. And so if you want to look at that series, I think it's called Becoming American. But then they followed up and said American identity is European Americans. Oh boy. My husband and I we talked about this last night, this comment, because he and I don't agree on this. If you saw the live stream, you know, we're good. Like I welcome people who disagree with me. So does he. We don't get, well, I can get emotional. He doesn't. He's pretty level. But we're good. And so we talk about this, and he's saying he kind of understands where his person is coming from when they say, well, most people are going to say American identity is European identity. But for me, that's the problem, because that is creating this thing of like all European immigrants had the same experience coming to America. And that's just not true. Like not even close to being true. And I'm sure that when you were in 8th grade, I think if you were an American, I think you had to do American history, social studies, and kind of doing the 1800s, 1900s history. And I remember going through the Ellis Island unit. And it was like, and people came through Ellis Island, and it was hard after coming from a poor country, coming across the water, and yada, yada, yada. And just kind of totally glossing over the varied experience that each group went through. And again, it's not like the competition is not to see who was victimized the most. Like that is not what this channel is about. But I'm a history teacher. I'm just a historian. I'm a student of history, and I really resent these broad looks at American history. Like America hasn't been around long enough to paint with such a broad brushstroke. You know what I mean? It's not like we're looking back at the Roman Empire and saying, well, let's just kind of summarize that period of 1,000 years here, that period of 1,000 years here, that you're here. Like we haven't been around that long. Like we need to zoom in a little closer because this is a lot more recent. Someone told me that I was going to get deported. Where could I get deported to? What does that even mean? You know where I would like to get deported to? Probably Arizona or New Mexico for a little while. I lived in both those places for a little while. I taught in both those places, and I love the desert so much. I just love everything about it. So if someone wants to deport me to like the Phoenix area or Santa Fe for a little while, I'm down with that. But yeah, I don't know what that means. I'm from New York. This one, shut your dumb Gen Z mouth, little girl. Well, this one I saved. I'm going to put it on a t-shirt because I was just like, I'm flattered. I'm an old millennial. Like, thank you. Made my day. I'm not going to say their username, but thank you. All right. And I wanted to end on this one. This was from a couple weeks ago, actually. I saved it because I thought it was interesting. You appear to have done well in the genetic lottery, Danielle. You could claim either white privilege or victim status. Are you ever concerned that you're going down a rabbit hole on race? What a question. It is a rabbit hole. I want to say not race, but identity here in the United States. I know it's that way other places, but the more I dig in, the less clear it all is, right? And it just becomes another thing of one group trying to harness power over another group, and personally I feel like that usually points to money, and that's the whole Bacon's Rebellion thing, right? And I did a video on that where I think at the heart of this there's class issues, which, you know, maybe that's why someone thinks I'm like a global social Marxist, like whatever, which I'm not. But I don't claim either thing. I don't claim either thing because I think history is important, right? But I also believe that we have agency in our own lives. And I think that what has happened in the past does affect us to a point, but we also have agency to change the future. Just like those people had agency and it has created some things that we're dealing with now. We are able to create new things right now for the future. And so I think there's this balance of, it's not white privilege versus being completely victimized by someone. I reject both of those things. But I think it's being cognizant of what happened a couple generations ago here in our country. And, you know, if I'm going to talk about what happened a couple generations ago, without malice, without rage at people who are around today who inherited things, didn't necessarily create them, but inherited them. If we can't have conversations like that, like go ahead and just burn all the history books, right? Like don't study World War I, don't study World War II. That was ancient history. Why are you studying that stuff? It doesn't matter. We can't pick and choose that. Now, this is uncomfortable right now because we are having problems in our country. And I think the knee-jerk reaction is to say, well, it's gotten so bad that we need to stop talking about it. It's bad because we're talking about it. I'm just like, nah. I went to counseling for the first time a couple years ago after a traumatic event. And I felt that way. This event was so traumatic that there's no way talking about it. It can't undo it. It can't undo how I feel. It can't undo what it did to my life or my family's life. But it did help. It helped to sit down and talk about it. And to do it in a way that was non-judgmental, non-confrontational. And I think that is the thing that we're missing. And that is what I want to do, is like, let's have a space to sit down and talk with each other. And you're welcome to sit and talk with me. I try not to delete comments. Like I said, I usually only delete them if it's a nasty one. But other than that, like, you're welcome to join the conversation here at my channel. And that's what I want to do. I don't know what happens after 100,000 subscribers, but I am just so honored to have so many of you sitting with me at this table. learning from each other, I would love to bring more people to the table. So thank you so much for everyone who has been here, who's been a part of this. And if you would like to watch some of the Supreme Court videos I did, I'll leave a link to that below, maybe at the end of this. And we will talk soon.